Hello, ladies and gentlemen, and welcome to this episode of Red Wolf Roundtable. Excuse me for my cold. I'm your host, Bradley Brewer. Gone is Wesley Gwaltney, who is currently on assignment. And we have two new hosts this week. We have Michael Buck, and we have Cydney Thompson. Yeah, two faces you've never seen before. It's always exciting to get new talent on. And we're going to start off talking about the show with a team that really is slept on at Arkansas State. It's the rugby team, and they don't really get too much hype because they're not an official NCAA sanctioned team, but they're still like the best team we have at Arkansas State. They're currently ranked 10th in the nation, and they are 3-0 in the season. They've outscored their opponents 223-6. And so, I bet you're wondering, is the scoring maybe like basketball, they score more points? Even if they held their other team to 6 points. So just recently, they beat Ole Miss 109-0, and you guys saw the weather this weekend, right? It was pretty bad. They were out there. First of all, I'm just going to ask you guys of your opinion. I'll start with you, Michael. The rugby team, it's something students at A-State we're really familiar with, and we see them around all the time. But do you think these guys get enough recognition?
I don't think so. I think they deserve more recognition than they do. I think they get recognition in school, but outside of Arkansas State, I feel like they could definitely get more recognition from other schools or just from the media,
Yeah, and definitely. And, we are starting to see that. Region 8, actually, where we got our information from today, Region 8, gave them that news article and that props, and they came out and filmed the really wet game. It was raining all weekend. And when we know rugby is a sport, related to kind of like a lot to football, American football, so playing in those treacherous conditions and being able to keep up that quality of play is quite impressive. So I'm excited to see how they do. And then another team that we don't really talk about that much is our soccer team. Our soccer team started off their season, or their conference season, with a 2-0 record. And speaking of the weather, they played Georgia State this past Sunday at noon, and they had to go to Valley View for their soccer field because ours was just, completely flooded. And so, they went 2-0. Haley Furo and Hannah Melpin got a goal apiece to go up to 2-0. And so good job on those guys. And to a team that has really started gaining some traction and really more media attention, especially within Red Wolf Roundtable, is the volleyball team. They're on an 8-game win streak. And Cydney, we were talking about Carlisa May earlier. Mm-hmm. So tell me about which players, because we know Carlisa May will always have an impact. Mm-hmm. So is she the staple of the team for you, or who are some other players that you may know that you'd have your eye on?
Well, you can always have your eye on Carlisa May, but then you also have Tatum Tickner,
yeah.
She's coming up. She's not, as well known as Carlisa, but once you gotta have a second player, you gotta have that backup player, and with her, she's that one. She's coming up. She's making the plays for them. She's helping them out. So she does a good job on helping the team when she needs to.
Yeah, and you really see, with Tatum's position, she's in a scoring player. She goes for the digs. She's a much more defensive player. But it really is cool to see because watching her play, not only is she a defensive player, I interviewed Carlisa May this past Friday after they defeated Troy 3-0, and then they reverse swept South Alabama this Sunday 3-2, and so that kept up their 8-game winning streak. But on that Friday, I talked to Carlisa, and she gave Tatum that shout-out because, she might not specifically light up that scoreboard, especially in that offensive manner, but she'll get down low and get digs and get save balls that usually may not. And so it's really cool to see her. And also, there's some offensive staples. Peyton Uhlenhake and then Macy Putt are two that you really see prevalent on the scoreboards. They're right up there with Carlisa. And so we talked about it last week on the show, where there is a huge youth movement. And, Carlisa's a star, but she's a senior, and so she's going to be gone next year.
Yeah,
so
you gotta have those extra. You gotta have those players that's gonna help the team later on once she graduates. Because then you also had Ellie Watkins, because she had 54 assists just with that. Machine. So you gotta, like you said, you gotta make sure you got a balance of who's gonna be here to help later for the team, and not just count on Carlisa when she graduates.
Yeah, and Coach David Rear, he's done a really good job of establishing roles for these players, because you'll see Peyton and Carlisa are going to be, the offensive staples. Tatum is very great on the defensive side of the ball, and Ellie, I mean, like I just said, she's an assist machine. Like she, scores 50 assists all the time in games. So it's really cool to see there. So I talked to, I asked, I believe all three. This past on our A-State media department Vimeo, we have interviews up with Carly Samay, Riley Gill, and Coach David Rear. And I asked all of them what they see this team, because like we just said, there's a huge youth movement, and Ellie and Carlisa are seniors, and there may be one other senior on that team, but mostly it's like sophomores. And so with such a young squad, I asked them, do they think this is a championship caliber team? Because they finished third in last year's Sun Belt tournament. So I'll ask you guys, and you saw them play Friday. So from what you saw, do you think this is a team that maybe doesn't have it all together right now, or do you think this is a team that can really make a serious run for the championship this year?
I think they definitely have the skill to make it to the championship. I don't know if they're inexperienced. Their inexperience might trip them up a little bit, but I think if they work together and they communicate well and they just talk to each other well, that they'll be able to make a good season and make the championship.
Okay, what's your thoughts on that same question, Cydney?
I think they can make it if they made third last year, and then this season. I mean, you do have the younger players, so I mean they're gonna be a little more experienced. They weren't just as experienced as they were last year. So this year they may get to the same, or they may get at a higher location. They may get second, or they may win all of it just from having that experience from last year. Even though some of them may be like sophomores and stuff, they still got that chance to go last year. So now if they, continue to work hard and hustle and do everything that they're doing this year throughout the preseason and regular season, then I feel like they could take it.
Yeah, I agree with you guys. I mean, it's hard to say because last year the two people who finished above A-State in the Sun Belt volleyball tournament were Texas State and Coastal Carolina, and those are really good teams. And Coach Rear, he was very cautious when he talked about, if these are the two teams that are again going to put up same problems, because Louisiana Lafayette, they look good this year, and so right now with the Sun Belt conference play just starting, and it's hard to see where everyone's at, but I do think this weekend after the two games, I was more impressed, and I wasn't able to see the South Alabama game because I was out sick, but I was more impressed with South Alabama than Troy, because sure, they swept Troy and two close sets at the beginning, but the third set was pretty dominant. But South Alabama, they went down 0-2. I believe A-State led the set one 19-11 at one point, but they managed to lead the set 26-24. They lost the second set. And we talk about inexperience. Usually inexperienced teams would have been done. I was like, okay, we blew the first set, and now we've lost control of the second set. There's no way we're going to win. But they came back, they grinded, won the third, fourth, and fifth set, and kept that winning streak going. And the 2-0 Sun Belt Conference record. And so I think that really told me, like, they have not only do they have the skill, and Carlise even said, it may take a little bit more time. I think it may be there now, because when you see that just mental fortitude, like that, it's coming back from that is extremely hard. Like I wouldn't be able to do it. I would have been out. That's why they're, not professionals, but they're D1 college athletes. And so I'm really interested to see how they do in the upcoming weeks. One weekend to keep your eyes on is they'll be playing Louisiana Lafayette and ULM. I believe it's Friday, October 12th, and then Saturday 13th. And so keep an eye on that. We will have some content coming up with Red Wolf Roundtable during that game weekend, so take a look at for that. But that's all we have for this segment. But stick around, because right after the break, we're going to take a look at A-State football.
Ashes are about to be dumped, which could possibly start a wildfire. How will Smokey deal with such a hot situation? The garden hose defense. Next, a thorough stir. Then another spray. And finally, feeling if the ashes are cool.
Oh, yeah.
Ah, yes, the selfie. A ritual practiced so frequently with this tribe, but not so much by Smokey Bear.
Only you can prevent wildfires.
Most party fouls are pretty dumb.
But if you decide to drink and drive underage, you could lose your license and your freedom. Underage drinking and driving. The ultimate party foul.
Hello, ladies and gentlemen. Welcome back to Red Wolf Roundtable. We just got off a great discussion, mainly about our volleyball team and how they're going to be gunning for the Sun Belt Championship this year. But another sports team that is really going to be gunning for the Sun Belt Championship and looks probably stronger than ever are our football team. This past Saturday, they played against UNLV at Centennial Bank Stadium, won 27-20. And at first, that seemed like a scary game. And I tell you, I'm just going to go out of the gate and say my player of the game was Jerry Jacobs. 2 clutch interceptions deep in, when UNLV were driving deep in A-State's territory. He was able to pick the ball off and stop those points from being scored. And when it's a one-possession game, you know, that made all the difference and gave A-State the ball. So 3-1 start on the season. First time that's happened since 1995, I think, as we were talking about during the break. And so what are the strengths? I'll start with you, Cydney. What are the strengths of this team, and why are they able to do so well at the beginning, and how are they going to keep it going through the Sun Belt play?
Well, let's remember Saturday's game, it was pouring down rain.
True.
It was raining the entire game for them, like no breaks, none of that. So I feel like they did a really good job in holding their composure throughout the game. They held on, they stuck it out. But I think their defense is what held them together. And so making those plays, the quick tackles, and then the interceptions and catching the opposite team, catching them in their mistakes, it helped them and it built their confidence for offense. When offense got out there, they were able to, they were down, what was it, 21-20, I believe?
Yeah.
They were down, and so then once they got back in it, and so they continued to stay in the game, although it was raining. So that was, I feel like if they can keep the fight throughout the season, then they can make a big push for championship.
Yeah, for sure. And I also was very impressed sitting in the press box to see how many people came out and stuck it out in the rain. Very great support coming from the A-State fans, even in that conditions. I mean, I wasn't feeling it, and I was sitting inside the press box, but everyone else was getting into it. So great job from the fans. Shout out to them. But one thing we talked about, you said the defense really held the team together, and that's very odd to say about this A-State team, because this is, especially the Sun Belt Conference in general, it's a conference where, it's like the Big 12, high scoring, and not really known for its defenses. So it really is curious to see, 4 turnovers, I believe, that A-State forced out of UNLV. And definitely, when you're forcing those turnovers, you should win the game. And it shouldn't have been that close probably at the end, but like you said, the rain, very weird conditions, they stuck it out. But yeah, let's talk about the offense, which usually, because the offense, Justice Hansen, the star of the offense as we've known for years, he went off 19 for 27, 199 yards, and 3 touchdowns. So our offense is still firing on all cylinders. So what do you think? Do you think offense is still the key part of this team, Michael, or do you think now that the defense is meeting it, this is a championship team now?
I feel like it's pretty balanced between our offense and our defense. I feel like our defense has really stepped up their game. I feel like it's pretty even. Yeah, I know Justice Hansen, he's a great player, and I feel our running game was good against UNLV too. I think we had a rushing touchdown. We had over 100 rushing yards, I think.
Yeah, as total. Yeah, I think it was. Yeah.
So I feel like everything is firing on, we're firing on all cylinders right now. I feel like we're playing really well, and I feel like we could win the Sun Belt.
Yeah, and I think that's true, because I talked to Justice Hansen before the season even really started, and one thing that I believe it was Coach Coffin talked about was he had 4 guys running the ball, and main name you'll know is Warren One, which he's the guy. He's often in the backfield, returning punts and kicks. But Marcel Murray, he was the guy who scored that touchdown that you're talking about, 95 yards in that game. He was a real star. of that running game, which isn't too often we see that. And there are elements of, okay, how much of this do we need to take it with a grain of salt due to the conditions? When there's normal conditions, will the game revert back to, okay, heavy passing, defense may not be doing as well. But overall, I do think it's very encouraging, especially with, I mean, everyone knows, the fabled, the trope of football where you run to set the pass, and that sets up the play action, sets up, and so then it just makes your offense completely unpredictable. And I feel like that was something that was probably the thing that prevented A-State from winning the championship last year. So it will be really interesting to see if that comes to fruition. And so you said you're confident in them winning the Sun Belt Championship. What about you?
I'm confident. I think they have a good team. Like you said, Murray, he ended up getting player of the game on Saturday for that. So I think they have some good key players for offense and defense, like you guys said. So I'm confident in them taking it all.
Okay. And so let's take a look ahead at the rest of our Sun Belt opponents. So last year it was Troy who played spoiler for us. I'm still not over that, of how they prevented us from taking the Sun Belt title along with App State. And, we ended up going to the Montgomery Bowl, I believe. So is there any team, do you think Troy will be the big team? Or, I know App State, they're going to be. But then, and again, with this new division split, and the division we're in, it really looks like we should be at least in the championship game, because the division where it's much easier. So who do you think we're going to be? Do you think App State's going to be the big one again?
I'm not sure. I think it's probably App State, but I think Troy is very impressive, and I think their win against Nebraska was a big win.
Yeah.
That was surprising to me, even though I know they're a great team. I think they could definitely beat App State, and I think it's just going to come down to one of those two teams.
For sure. And I like when you talk about the upsets, there's nothing that makes me happier than a Fun Belt upset over, a Power 5 conference team. So actually, you know what, since I'm going to do something that we really haven't done before, and personally, I mean, this is an opinion talk show, so I can say this and get away with it, but University of Arkansas, I'm not the biggest fan. People who know me, I'm not the biggest fan of University of Arkansas.
You're not supposed to be.
Yeah. Well, I mean, some people around here are. But the University of Arkansas, they haven't been doing so hot. And so I'm not going to make, the argument is, okay, should Arkansas play A-State and who would win? Because, I mean, that's probably never going to happen. But let's talk about Arkansas. Let's give them we have some time. So let's talk about Arkansas. They have a new coach coming in, Chad Morris. Where do their problems lie? Where do you see their problems lying? Or do you think it's just a complete broken team?
I feel like Chad Morris just doesn't have his players exactly ready yet, because I think he's still stuck with Bielema's players and the starters that Bielema had. And so I feel like it's just going to take some work for them to get used to the style of play that they need to get used to. And I feel like the players that Chad Morris brought in will need to get more prepared and get used to playing more. But right now, I think their defense is probably pretty weak. Even though they didn't look as bad against Auburn this last week, they still got beat 35-3, I think. And so I think they just need a lot of work in almost every way.
For sure. And so, Cydney, I mean, you kind of, it doesn't sound like you're a Fayetteville fan either.
I mean, I'm a Red Wolf, so I don't even pay attention to them. I just notice when they lose drastically, and it's just like, you guys,
the North
come
Texas.
on now, what are you guys doing? So it's like I have no reason to watch. It's like you watch and then you get, you're like, oh, okay, we're happy, but then they lose. It's like, I'm just going to stick to my A-State football.
I think that's a way to go, especially. I mean, yeah, sure. I mean, people talk about, it's fun, but also very tiring to go in through Twitter and social media and read all the people like the Razorback fans who, are, distraught. And I feel bad for the people who are distraught, but there's also some that lashed out at like A-State when, the conversation, because Clay Travis had a huge hot take, which hot takes is, one of our favorite segments on here.
I love hot takes.
But Clay Travis had a huge hot take where Arkansas should be relegated from the SEC and relegated to the Sun Belt, and Arkansas State should be brought to SEC. Now, I will admit, if Arkansas State went up to the SEC, we would get absolutely trashed. Maybe, I think the only question would be, will it be a lesser or more of an extent than Fayetteville currently is getting trashed? Yeah, well, Arkansas football, whew, it's fun. It's fun to watch. So what do you guys think? Do you think, how would A-State, because I believe we had a discussion about this after the volleyball game, where if A-State moved into a different conference, like, or the football-wise, because our other teams struggle, but football, where do you think our football team would belong, or do we belong in the Sun Belt?
I feel like the Sun Belt's a pretty good fit, honestly. I feel like if we went to the SEC, we'd definitely get killed.
Yeah.
I think Conference USA, maybe we could fit with some of those teams because they're not as high of a level of play as the SEC or teams like that. But then again, Ole Miss got beat by Alabama worse than we did. So, I mean, there's teams in the SEC that we could probably hang with, like U of A or Ole Miss or Vanderbilt even. So I think we couldn't hang in the SEC, but you never know. You never know until you try.
Yeah, and I always, people, because we know Arkansas is going to be playing Alabama in the future, and we got rocked by Alabama, which was expected. I mean, we got paid $1.7 million to do it, so it's fine. But so it is like I try to shy away from the transitive property because it's something we saw a lot last year when Wes and Zach would duel it out and just say like, well, according to the transitive property, UCF are national champions. So that's not exactly how it works out. So I'm taking everything with a grain of salt as I see it. But I mean, I don't know. It would be interesting to say it's really fun to play mind games. So do you agree? Do you think? I mean, I honestly think, especially Sunbelt's a good fit. Especially, I mean, if you're winning, might as well stay in Sunbelt and keep winning.
Right.
But our other teams are maybe like not championship caliber teams. Now, if we were dominating every championship in Sunbelt, maybe. But what do you think?
I think we should stay in Sunbelt. I think we're a good fit. I know, like you said, if we go to SEC, it probably won't be as pretty as Sunbelt. So I think we should probably stay where we are just to stay safe, win the games, do good for the school.
All right. Valuable opinions coming from you both. Good stuff. And so that'll wrap up our discussion on A-State sports. We're going to take a quick break. And then when we come back, we're going to be talking about national sports, NFL, MLB, all that good stuff. So stick around.
I'll never forget the day our landlord called and said, read your lease. No pets allowed. My owner tells him my dog ate the lease, but that didn't work. And now I'm stuck in a shelter. But this pit bull is ready for a new crib. I'm loving, loyal, and play well with others. So don't be intimidated by all my muscles, because the biggest one I have is my heart. That's right, I said it.
It's a big responsibility.
Oh, it's huge. I know, it's huge.
And the salary.
Oh my god, yes. I mean,
Right.
like, I was about to move in with my parents, and right before, so this saved me.
I really believe in you,
Thank you. It's nice to hear that from someone.
These are cool. Did you, what did
Maybe you can make retirement happen. After all, you made this vacation happen.
Double points with every purchase?
Cleverly merging promotions.
I love it.
Cross-referencing travel sites. And booking all your flights with those...
Vouchers. I got us bumped.
They were like, oh. But now they're like... Aloha. You aced this vacation. Now get the tips you need to get on track at aceyourretirement.org.
Welcome back to the Red Wolf Roundtable. I'm your host, Bradley Brewer. Alongside me still, Michael Buck and Cydney Thompson. And I'm going to flip the script a little bit. I'm going to keep the promise. We're still going to talk about, NFL, MLB, and all that stuff. But we're running a little short on time. So we're just going to jump straight in to hot takes. It's our favorite segment. And I'm just going to allow Wes picked on me all the time, especially because I was the younger one. And so now I'm going to pick on the younger one now. Michael, you can go first with your hot take.
Well, my hot take is that the St. Louis Cardinals are going to the World Series. They're gonna, I feel like they can hang with any team in the National League. I feel like they could beat the Cubs. I feel like they could beat the Braves. I feel like we got good pitching. We got good hitting. Harrison Bader, he's hot. Carpenter, he's been down a little bit, but I feel like he'll pick it back up. I feel like the St. Louis Cardinals could go all the way to the World Series, and that's my hot take.
Okay, so let's take a look at this leagues. Now, I will confess, I'm not an MLB expert. Like, most of my expertise lies in A-State sports. But let's see, because the Braves, didn't they lock in their division title? Like, how long ago? Have the Cardinals even locked in their title?
The Cardinals are still fighting for the second wild card spot.
Okay, so you're voting for a wild card team to go through.
Yes.
So you just must see a lot of potential, especially because that wild card, because you're playing on thin ice.
Yes.
Because that's a best of one, and as a Mets fan, I've been burned by that multiple times. So, but you think they're just gonna glide through it?
I got faith in them. I think Jack Flaherty is gonna go in and pitch a great game in the wild card game, and they're gonna take it.
Okay, fair enough. All right, so we're gonna move on to Cydney with your hot take.
Well, okay. My hot take is basically just, Media Day. NBA Media Day was, I believe it was Monday or Tuesday. So NBA is coming back, man. It's coming back, and I'm ready for it. We got new faces, new teams. LeBron is on the Lakers. That's the East or the West, and not the East anymore. He's not going to dominate like he is in the East with the Cleveland Cavaliers. Dwayne Wade announced his retirement. So it's just going to be a big change for the NBA for the year.
Okay, so it sounds like you're playing it safe because in the world of hot takes, we make predictions. So I'm going to try to force a prediction out of you.
Okay.
So
let's see.
NBA, I've voiced my displeasure with the NBA because of one team and one team only. And Rob Nelson, our former producer, would roll in his hypothetical grave. The Golden State Warriors have ruined the NBA, and they're the most stacked team ever.
You could say that.
And I'm just like, if someone comes up to me and starts trying to talk about NBA, I'm like, why do you care? Golden State's going to win the championship anyway. Like, why care? So, do you think you talk about LeBron and the Lakers? Dwayne Wade went to Miami for one more year. So, is there a team? Because Houston still should be strong. Is there a team that may be able to challenge Golden State for the championship?
I still think Houston can take them. They can take them. They can really go all the way to the championship like they should have last year. Cause who is that? Boogie Cousins. He's still hurt, so he may not be to his complete potential when he comes back. So you got him, but then again, he may be on the bench for like half the season. So you never really know with that. And then the rest of them, they may get tired. They'll start to dwindle down. Then Houston, they got Carmelo for the season, for the year. So is more Houston has more of an impact than they did. And then when CP3, when he comes back healthy, I feel like Houston was going to take him if he was healthy in that last game, those last couple of games. If he was healthy, I feel like he would have took them. They would have made it to the championship and they would have won. So it's going to be.
Fair play. You put up a good debate there. And so, okay, so we're going to move to the NFL for my hot take, because you talked about how injuries, have played a large part in these NBA rosters and may change the championship scene inside the NBA. Sounds a lot like my fantasy football team, honestly, sitting at 0-3. It's not going too well. But my quarterback was Tyrod Taylor. Don't ask me why, but my quarterback was Tyrod Taylor. But there's a man who took over the Cleveland Browns, and his name is Baker Mayfield. And my hot take is that Baker Mayfield, this is hot take, Wes would grill me if he's here, but he's not, so I can say this. The Browns are going to go to the AFC Championship game. Because, okay, first of all, I don't know. I don't trust the Steelers, even though they just went on Tampa Bay. I don't know. The Steelers seem fairly inconsistent to me. And I don't know. Maybe it's just I can be compulsive, and I think we're seeing this right now. But I don't know. But it's really exciting times in Cleveland, and I feel like since they've had such a string of just bad, for lack of a better word, just bad, that Cleveland's going to have this wave of good luck. And there's a lot of there's not really a dominant team. You see Patriots fall off the Jaguars. So the AFC isn't as strong as it usually is. So I think there's a big opening if the Browns can continue. It'd be great if Des Bryant could show up. But yeah, I'm a Browns fanboy now. But yeah, that's all the time we have. Great discussions all around. Thanks for joining me on this show, guys. And make sure to follow us on Twitter at RWRT Official for additional updates and interviews. And that's all I have. Make sure to join us next week.